come here to this platform to honour 12 heroes. I haven't been told whether or not they trained on Guinness, but looking at them, it is possible that one or two might have. You have every reason to be proud, not only of your community, but of them, in that their name and their achievement is going to be put in a book which, as I understand it, has now got a circulation of in excess of 53 million. And if that is not historic, I find it difficult to see what would not be. This is a tremendous achievement. I am delighted to have the honour to be here today to congratulate them on behalf of Guinness and on my own behalf. And again, to thank you all very much for having me here, and perhaps from this platform to pay some tribute to Brian Murphy, whose enthusiasm has made all this happen, as I understand it, with obviously tremendous backing. May I just finish by saying thank you all very much again for having me here. It is an extremely pleasant task for me to perform and an extremely great honour. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keith Hunt. Out here in Castlebridge, we tamper with protocol a little bit at times. I fear this morning we tampered with it quite a lot. But if we did tamper with it, it was with the most gracious consent of the first citizen of Wexford Town, who has consented to be here with us this morning. And it is a measure of the commitment of His Worship the Mayor that out of deference for this unique association of the Guinness organisation with our community, that we should let Mr. Hunt have primacy of place in the order of speakers. So it is with the greatest pleasure I now introduce to you His Worship the Mayor, Senator Brendan Howland.
Mr. Chairman, Minister, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, it is a unique honour and privilege for me to be in such august company today, and to be in the village of Castlebridge. There are many calls on the office of Mayor in the year that any individual occupies that office. And I think no call, I think, gives as much pleasure as to respond to real community action. In the last number of weeks, in Wexford Town we've seen a number of community play schemes. In rural areas we have communities involved in community games. But I have to say, standing as I do in Castlebridge now, that this particular community and the people in this area are very much to the fore in involving themselves in a program of self-help, self-advancement and self-fulfillment. You have been an example to much larger communities in all your endeavours in the past. And it is so easy for a statutory body, whether it's Wexford Corporation or Wexford County Council, to respond to real community action. Because once you've done 2/3 of the work yourself, it's so easy for a statutory body to be of assistance and to help along the way. We're standing here now, and within eyeshot of the platform, we see the reading rooms, which we have marvellously restored and occupied and used. We see the People's Park, once walled off with high walls, now open to people to enjoy and see, and for your visitors to admire passing through the village. All these things are done because people look around them in the community and decide that I'm not going to be a passive member, but I'm going to do something positive. And some communities are gifted with many such people, and the community of Castlebridge is one. We're here to do many things today, to remember a long association with this community and one of the flagships of Irish industry, Guinness. We're also here to honour people who have decided themselves to take on a challenge. And these people standing in front of us have taken on that challenge, and they've set up a new record, unbeaten anywhere else in the world. That example of setting a goal, of working to better anything else ever previously done, again, is a sterling example for us all. And I would add my small words of congratulations to the other speakers in saluting those gentlemen standing in front of us who have set up such a marvellous record. And again, I cite you to the town and county of Wexford as a magnificent example of self-help and community action. Thank you very much indeed.
Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is, I believe, the first woman ever residing in Wexford to hold the office of a Minister of State. Not just any Minister of State, but a Minister of State at the prestigious Department of Finance. While only a Minister for a very short time, she brings to her high office a vast inherited experience. And that is the reason, no doubt, why in the tough and stressful world of politics, which is predominantly a male milieu, she performs with singular success. It's not hard to understand why she charms friend and foe alike. Opposition and supporter are treated with equal courtesy. She draws her support across all divides. She told me here this morning that she has 2 major engagements later on today. And yet, in her exacting schedule, she has found time to be with us here this morning. So I want you to give a very hearty welcome to our Minister of State at the Department of Finance, Mrs. Avril Doyle.
Thank you for those very kind words of welcome, Mr. Chairman, and distinguished guests. I'm very conscious that the very people we are here to honour today are hoping to goodness we'd all get up and go home in a few moments, and I promise not to delay them particularly very long. I'm honoured to attend this festive occasion in a village which is indeed unique in County Wexford. Of course, Castlebridge is famous and has been famous for far longer than just since its connection with Guinness. I must remind Mr. Keith Hunt that. It goes back a very long way, and the name Castlebridge has been made indelible on the maps of County Wexford way back since the 1798 rebellion. Indeed, its first church was reputed to have been built by St. Columba. And, of course, we mustn't forget 1910, when it won the All-Ireland Hurling Championship. Every few years, Castlebridge brings one out of the bag to be sure none of us can ever forget it. In more recent times, the last descendant of the merchant family, the Frenches, Mr. Dr. Des French, was co-founder and indeed chairman of our now internationally famous Wexford Opera Festival. Back in 1825, one Patrick Breen purchased the main block of stores here in the village and began working as a maltster and grain merchant. His son, Patrick Breen Jr., in 1836 had the honour of being the first merchant in the village to have transacted business with the Guinness family, thereby starting and establishing a long tradition of association between the village and the Company of Guinness. From that first sale in 1836, many hundreds of thousands of barrels of grain and malt changed hands, and indeed, many a man and more recently a woman in a pub must have thought of that occasion as they downed their pints and enjoyed them. Many changes occurred during the intervening years. In the 1920s, the transport of goods between Castlebridge and Wexford by the river slowly became outmoded in favour of road transport. In 1968, the making of malt in Castlebridge was finished forever, but that did not end the connection between the village here and Guinness's. When Guinness took over WB Non-Limited, they also took over the community centre in the square. In 1980, Guinness very generously handed back the building to the local people, and combining that with the opening of the new Guinness Library later today, the Guinness connection with Castlebridge is as strong as ever. An extraordinary, one might say, marriage which has existed for 150 years and looks certain, after today's events, to continue for many more years to come. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, it is particularly appropriate that the village in which the Guinness Book of Records was conceived should now have its own formal entry. To these 12 brave men, and shortly to become very famous men, I thank them for the honour they've brought not just to Castlebridge, not just to County Wexford, but indeed the honour they've brought to Ireland here this morning. I would like to thank all the contestants of the community games. Winning isn't everything. Competing is just as important. Without competition there'd be no winners. I thank the bands and the majorettes. We've come to expect them to make these occasions all the more happier and brighter from us all. Perhaps we take you for granted, but thank you indeed for turning out. And just before I sit down, all I can say is that I wish every village in County Wexford had a Brian Murphy. Thank you.
Brian has just sent word up here that my word race will have to improve. However, an introduction to our next guest may seem superfluous. We've said it before on this platform, and we want to say it again, that everywhere you look in this community, there is the hallmark of his enlightened administration. It was with trepidation some years ago that we learned that Wexford County Council had purchased the former non-family residence. And as this gracious home had been at the very centre of the community life of this parish for such a long time, any future development of it was a matter of concern. Our fears were groundless. The subsequent development is one of the most truly sensitive developments to be found anywhere. In this development, thanks to him, the practical and the aesthetic are brilliantly combined. Could anyone passing through this village, casual or otherwise, visualize that in that lovely house and grounds are incorporated something so practical and so vitally essential as a firefighting training service? And from today onwards, it will house the new Guinness Library, and all are integrated in a development so utterly harmonious and at the same time so functional and practical. And we are all aware that at a time, over the past number of years, and even now, that while communities, urban and rural, and Dublin is the supreme example, have been vandalised architecturally and environmentally by inept administrations, we here in Castlebridge in particular, and County Wexford in general, thanks to him, are enjoying a veritable renaissance. We have said here before, and we want just to say it again, that we are a small community on the periphery of a large town. And we have been enriched over the last 3 decades by a vast inflow of people. But the challenge that have been facing us, and that will continue to face us, is to try and retain a sense of community and identity in the face of this rapid population explosion. So we thank our next guest in particular for helping us to meet that challenge. We thank him for everything that he has done for our community. So it is with great pleasure I introduce to you our County Manager, Mr. Noel Dillon.
Mr. Chairman, Minister for State, Mayor, Mr. Hunt, distinguished guests, and friends from Castlebridge, it's very hard to follow that introduction. One of my councillor colleagues alongside me, deputy colleagues alongside me, said, "I wonder who's he talking about," when he was calling the introduction. And I'm sure some of yourselves were too. I mean that sincerely, Pat. It's a very, very glowing tribute. And myself and Avril were mentioning before the Mass this morning that there's a certain political party who are advocating that county managers would go up for election. And I think Pat has decided that he'll give me a chance to break the ice. You see, it's very seldom I can talk direct to the community. You invariably hear about me through the medium of the newspaper, and seeing that newspapers today decide that 95% of their publicity is going to be the argy-bargy, and 5% the positive stuff. I just want to assure you that in case you feel that we in the local authority spend most of our time arguing, that we don't. And indeed, taking Pat's last point, what it was achieved, and I've written a few words about it for Brian, a person you can't say no to, about how Castlebridge House came to be saved, if you like, for the community, and I consider the fire service a community service, and how it was with great pleasure that when he asked me for a home for the Guinness Library, that I was delighted on behalf of the County Council, and it was readily endorsed and wholeheartedly endorsed in the County Council, that we would bring this building and the services we provide in it more into your main street by giving a home in that unique room where the inspiration for the Guinness Book of Records took place, and where I said to him, the ghosts of Castlebridge must have inspired us when we decided to provide the first training centre for the fire service in Ireland here in Castlebridge. Another first for Castlebridge, and I hope that will find its way into the Book of Records as well. But it was most appropriate, therefore, that we would not just keep this building for the fire service and for that aspect of our activity, but that we would, if you like, share it with you in a positive way for some of your meetings. So we're delighted to house the library there and to have it available for that nice setting for some of your meetings. Now, I don't want every pitch and toss school meeting in it, we have a security problem, but we're delighted, actually, to have it brought back into use. As was said earlier, we have 3 very brave people, and that's the prime purpose of our meeting here with you this morning, and it's marvellous for someone like myself to come out and, meet the athletes of a community with the people in the community, meet your politicians, your public representatives, your civic leaders, your enlightened business people who are not just into business for itself, but can see the value of bringing a community along with them, your clergy, your parish priest, your guard superintendent Kenny and people. It's marvellous for us all to come together with you and to kind of share an occasion like this. And I would call our 12 heroes 12 apostles. Now, I'm not going to nominate Judas, I'm actually going to forgive him, but saying they have, as Father clearly reminded us, performed a tremendous endurance feat, a tremendous entertainment feat, a historical feat. But let's not just leave it at that, let them not lead it at that. I think if we take that forward and bring handball, if that's to achieve a positive purpose, handball must be brought back into every community, and Wexford must be brought back into handball at an All-Ireland level. And I think... okay. So Brian is going to have to nominate one of the lads as Peter, and we go forward from here. And I want to assure you that the County Council, if the Handball Association of County Wexford takes this baton in its grasp and runs with it, that we will help you. Once you come forward with ideas, we will help you to put handball, you know, right up to the very top rung of the ladder in County Wexford. Just a parting word about the fire service above. We were enabled to do a positive thing, like put in a training centre, use a house, if you like, as a form of hotels where our firemen could do search and rescue practice. Also use the stables, seal them up and fill them with smoke and heat, and use heat exchange rooms, and generate, if you like, a possible situation that none of us hopes will arise here or elsewhere in the county, but if it is, that like the Boy Scout will be prepared. We're enabled to do that by a positive direction of spending. And again, if I might just remark that it's timely, in last week's paper you'll see me down for wanting to prosecute people who won't pay chimney fines and put them in jail or something. And I want to take the opportunity of talking direct to you. That's the last thing in our minds. But we do feel that we have had about 550 chimney fires in County Wexford in the first 6 months of this year, when on average we have 600 for a year. And if we keep going like that, our firemen will be the best chimney sweeps in the country, and we'll have no money to train them to do something positive. So I have said, and I apologise to nobody for it, because I don't want to wait for the day where we're foostering around somewhere. I said I want to spend the money positively, and I'll prosecute people who won't clean their chimneys. And I think it's a far better economic measure to pay £4 to a chimney sweep to sweep the chimney than it is to pay £25 to Wexford County Council for washing it down and destroying your, not destroying, but upsetting you and your home as well. So if you'll help us, you're a positive community, we've been lauding you for it, will you help me as well? And that's a parallel request I have today. One to our young athletes to give us a lift in the county in that sport, and the other to you as a community to help us get across a simple measure. Look after your home and clean your chimney. Save us the job of sending out a brigade at quite enormous expense to clean it, and let us get on with the job of organising our funding in positive ways, and we'll be with you all the way. I would just finish with a final tribute, and it's very, very, in a sense, unwise to single out one person in any community, and I know there are very, very many stalwarts here. But you have one man that I can't say no to. When he said to me, would you ever write us, he was telling me about this event in Castlebridge House and the library, and seeing how the Guinness Book of Records was conceived in 1951 in that room. And then I started reminiscing about the fire, as I said to you, about the ghosts of Castlebridge must have inspired us for the first fire training centre. And he said, yeah, would you write that down and I'll put that. And I said, would you ever rev up and you know what to do now? To yourself, right. But anyway, he ended up after I trying to put him off and saying, no, get somebody else to write that. I'm not a writer. I did it for him. He ends up getting us here. He ends up, I don't know, Brian is someone that you can't say no to. And Canon Sheehan, in some of his writings, always spoke about the honour of the village. And he had a character. And I think Brian Murphy is one of our prime examples of Canon Sheehan's character for the honour of the village. And I wish that others would take his example. I know there are many others, but that we would look to and laud the likes of Brian Murphy, so that our children can have people of inspiration in the community to look to in the future. With those words, I leave you. Thanks very much, Brian, for everything.
Well, by the way, Brian is still not satisfied with my word rate, so we really got to hurry it up. We really got to hurry it up from here on. The last time I introduced our next guest, he was the youngest deputy in Dáil Éireann. Now, these days one has to be more careful when one starts talking about the chronology of age. But he's still a very young deputy and a very, very successful one. So, with great pleasure, I introduce to you Deputy Ivan Yates.
Chairman, Reverend Father, public representatives, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here again in Castlebridge. The last time I was here, I think you were growing trees and getting into the nursery business. And I see from then you've grown from strength to strength. I understand there's another 23 speakers, so I won't unduly delay you. I heard the other day that someone got into the Guinness Book of Records by sitting in a bathtub of baked beans for 2 days. I think it's only entirely appropriate that Castlebridge should get into the Guinness Book of Records for playing handball longer than anybody else. I'd like to pay special tribute to all who organised this day, Brian and all his committee, the 12 heroes, those involved in the community games who are about to receive their medals shortly. I'd like to particularly thank Guinness. I know they don't pay enough for malting barley to the farmers of County Wexford, but maybe we'll talk to them about that afterwards. They have sold Ireland abroad with their recent international acquisitions. They have a fine record of being one of the employers with the highest standards in the way they treat their employees, and they're responsible for one of our greatest national pleasures, that is the drinking of the plain pint. I'd like to congratulate again all those involved today, the high-stepping majorettes who always give us such pleasure, the bands and all of you for coming here today. I hope the next time we come to Castlebridge we will continue to be setting records, and I'd like to congratulate and thank you all for your achievements and assure you of every support in the County Council and all of us as public representatives can give you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Yates. Our next speaker is also Deputy Doyle Erin, and without further ado, I will introduce to you Deputy John Brown.
Mr. Chairman, Reverend Father, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Avril Doyle said to make it a quickie, so I intended to do that. And the thought just struck me there when Ivan Yates was speaking about Guinness. He doesn't drink a pint of Guinness, so I don't know what he's talking about. I would like to sincerely congratulate the organising committee for the wonderful functions that they're carrying out here this morning, particularly the opening of the Guinness Library, and to thank Guinness for the continued association with this area and with County Wexford. I would sincerely like to congratulate the 12 tough, strong men that created the record here today. And you know, I was watching Tommy Rossiter walking down the road there, and he still looks like a young fella after all 45 hours. I think Castlebridge is very unique nowadays. To have the mayor in Colin Flanagan, to have a unique record in handball, and I think what's very significant that this record was achieved playing our old ancient national game of handball, and I think that's to be greatly appreciated by the 12 people here today. Finally, once again, thank you very much for inviting me, and wishing Castlebridge continued success for the future.
Thank you very much, Deputy Brown. Our next speaker certainly needs no introduction. He's been always present at any function or any good cause we've ever promoted. And I introduce to you Councillor Michael Sinnott.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, Father Cleary, ladies and gentlemen, I am very proud to be here in Castlebridge this morning on this very onerous occasion in which 12 young men from this village have broken the world record in a marathon handball. And my compliments to them I couldn't describe in words. But Castlebridge has had a tradition for games over a long number of years. They have a tradition for bringing honours to their parish. And one of the greatest honours that came was in 1910, when Castlebridge, representing Wexford, brought the first All-Ireland Hurling Championship to this county. And none other than the chairman's father, the late Dick Doyle, was captain of that team. Down through the years, Castlebridge have contributed with many people on Wexford team that have brought All-Ireland honours. And in particular, they have people who have brought honours in that regard in the handball world of Castlebridge,
mentioning the famous Murphy brothers, Matty and Sean, the Devericks brothers, Richie Welsh, and others too numerous to mention. And I think one person indeed who stands out in everyone's mind in Castlebridge for a long number of years, who contributed in that respect as well and was president of the Gaelic Athletic Association, the late P.D. Breen. Long may this continue, that the Castlebridge people will play their